Hey YouTube, I'm going to talk about knives and how to make them more secure, how to make the retention of the knife in the sheath better if it's not that good to start with. Now I've got three neck knives I want to talk about. The first one I'm going to talk about is the cold Steel Mini-Tac Beaver tail. I really like this knife. It's got lots of good features. One of the main things about it I think that's good is the flat grind, full flat grind, which means that the edge is really sharp. You can get that sharp and keep it sharp. It's got a good grip. This stainless steel sub-hilt means it's really firm in the hand. It's also really good in the way that the sheath works, in that when you push this in, the sheath actually deforms slightly. It opens up slightly and then closes back round the sub-hilt again. So there is virtually no chance that this is going to come out. I could do this, but I'm absolutely sure I'm not going to be able to shake this knife out of its sheath. So leaving aside whether it's the best neck knife or not, or these three, one thing I think is really good is that the retention is strong. Now I've got two other knives here. This is the Schrade SCHF5N. It's the 1095 carbon steel blade, not the stainless steel one. Fairly inexpensively made, but a fairly good knife, I think, quite good value. However, the way the knife fits into the sheath is not that great. The way it's originally designed is that hole in the knife blade should meet a plastic lug under here, under this part of the sheath, and it should lock in. You don't have to be an engineering genius to realise that repeated pulling in and pushing, or pulling out and pushing in, is going to wear that piece of plastic down, and that the retention is not going to be that good. And then when that happens, it's going to start rattling, and eventually it could fall out. And after having this a few weeks, I realised that that's what was happening. So I've modified that, and I'll show you how in a minute. Another knife I quickly want to show you as well, though, is the Enzo Necker 70. I guess 70 because it's 70 mils long, the blade, more or less. Really nice knife. This has a micarta handle, and it's got quite a thick 3.4mm steel spine, full flat grind, really easy to sharpen and keep sharp, just like the Schrade, but way better quality. And I think even though it's more than twice the price, it's actually better value, I think. But it's a really nice knife. You've got a really good grip on it. It feels like it's kind of hand finished. I know it's not custom made or anything like that, but it feels really well made. And the Kydex sheath is also really well made. The other thing about this, though, which isn't so good, is that the fit, the way this knife goes into this fit and the way it's retained is purely by friction. So this kind of one got a bit worn, and this one, the first day I got it, I realised that although the sheath is really well made and it doesn't seem like it's going to release the knife, it could fall out, and you would not want this thing falling out. It's very sharp, and you know, just the way things work out, either it'll cut you or it'll drop out in front of people who don't like knives in the wrong time, the wrong place, or you could just lose it. So I was kind of worried about that. So let me show you what I did with each of these two things. This, you can probably guess, has three magnets in it. It has three top hat design neodymium magnets, which are compact, powerful, but they give a lot of power for the size. I think that's the key thing about a neodymium magnet. What I did was I used a ruler and drew a line on this, and decided to put three magnets in there. Then I used the awl from this Swiss Army knife, and I just kind of spaced out three holes. I didn't make a hole, but more made a depression with this tool, just to start the hole. Then using a handheld electric drill, a battery powered drill, and using a 2mm drill bit, I made pilot holes, three pilot holes, bang bang bang. I was careful not to go through this. Just be careful when you drill through this that you don't go through both sides unless you want to. Then I swapped that drill for a drill that corresponds with the size of these magnets I got, which is actually a 5mm drill, and I made the holes bigger, and similarly was careful not to go through the other side. These magnets, as I've just said, they're top hat design magnets, and you can probably see, let me just take this out here actually, you can kind of see why they're called top hat magnets. Where's the top one there? it's like a top hat basically. So that bit can go through a material. This skirt can hold it in the material, and they're used in all sorts of things where you want a flush fitting, two surfaces to flush fit. It's perfect for this application because the size of that thinner diameter piece is, the depth of it is pretty much exactly the depth of this sheath. So the magnet can almost touch the steel blade and therefore get maximum attraction without actually rubbing against it and either wearing the steel or wearing itself. So yeah, as I say, I made 5mm holes there, put one of these in each of the 3 holes, then using this Loctite super glue and some methylated spirits to degrease these or clean them, I then put them in. And in fact, before I put them in, I used some sandpaper on the holes just to create a bit of a key. I then put the magnets in, and then on top of that, to keep the magnets kind of protected and keep them absolutely secure, I used this stuff called Milliput, which is a 2-part epoxy putty. It's like plasticine when you mix it together. It's quite good because when you've put it in place, you can use a wet finger to smooth it off and it comes up very well. What I also did was to put some electrical tape around here, both for doing the sandpapering bit to keep the sanding within bands, but also it allows you to make sure this epoxy putty doesn't spread too far either. So then I put this all in, and I'm pleased with the result. It's got really good grip and retention. And if I hold this and try and shake it out, that's practically as hard as I can do it, and it's not coming out, yet it comes out fairly easily when I pull it. I have tried this on top of my bed, and you can throw this way and it will come out, but that is not normal usage, so I think that works. I'm happy with the way that works, and I would recommend that if you have a similar situation with a knife with a sheath like this, either a Schrade or another one, that you think the retention is not quite good enough, and this is a solution for your problems. The magnets came from first 4 magnets. They're about £1 each, these magnets, so you buy them in packs of 10, about £10. The other knife I want to talk about is the Enzo Necker. I got this after I got this, and yeah, it's a really good quality knife. But the thing is, this is purely a friction fit, and I felt that it wasn't going to be quite secure enough. I didn't want to damage this sheath because it's actually a really nicely made sheath. So what I did with this one is rather than drilling a hole, is to attach that magnet to a piece of rubber in a tube, and then just leave it on the outside of the Kydex sheath, and allow the magnetic field to go through the Kydex sheath rather than making a hole with a drill. And what I did was, I'll show you, I took a piece of rubber tube, rub it, cut myself there. This is a piece of racing bike in a tube. Imagine in a tube, it's a cylinder. I've just cut the end off, a bit of an end off, so it's completely joined. And I think what I did was I cut this, opened it out, and then I took this piece of wire, heated it in a gas flame on the hob on the kitchen cooker, and pierced the rubber with the red hot wire. And I had to heat this up a couple of times to make it really hot to go through this. Then I took one of the magnets off, and I pushed the narrow end through, glued it in place with the Loctite glue gel, then turned it inside out, and I was able to put this on the outside of the Kydex sheath, and it gives it just enough strength. There are different ways of doing that. You could, what I actually did was I think I used a longer bit of inner tube, and I wove it through the 2 holes and then glued it and then put some rubber tubes on top of that. But there are different ways of doing it. The key thing is to have a neodymium magnet on the outside of it and to have it in a way that's secure, so it won't come off. To use the top hat in such a way that it's prevented from coming off easily. But this is much better than it was when I first got it. I'm just going to give you a quick demo, the handshake demo. And I haven't been able to throw that out. Now I could have done that. I'm pretty sure that prior to putting the magnet on there, it would have come out. In fact, I'm certain. It's not the sort of thing that will come out in normal use, but you could imagine if you didn't put it back in really firmly, and then you're running perhaps through a wood, or you trip and fall, it's not impossible to imagine it could come out. With that magnet, even though it's not as strong as that or that, it's just pushed it towards being slightly more secure. So that's my recommendation. If you have a knife in a sheath, particularly a neck knife, and you want to improve its retention, use a magnet. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Please leave any comments and let me know what you think.